Okay, uh, so we will begin this workshop. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and all the participants who have joined in. This is the first ever initiative from Indian Maritime University, and we are going back in time, uh, but looking for a better future. So, this workshop is about maritime history of India, a Manthan, and I welcome you all to this workshop. To give the welcome address, I must invite our head of department, Professor V.K. Kesavdev, uh, and he's also the head of department of School of Naval Architecture and Ocean Engineering, and currently the in charge director of IMU Visakhapatnam campus. Dr. Kesavdev is a naval architect from Cochin University of Science and Technology, and he has done his master's and PhD from Osaka in Japan. He worked in Japanese shipbuilding industry for some time before moving back to India, and we are happy to have you here, sir. I request you to give the welcome address. Dr. Kesadev, please.
Yeah, thank you, Yoser Mesa. Uh, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Indian Maritime University, Dr. Mrs. Malini V. Shankar, IAS retired, Madam. Director, Maritime History Society, Commodore Odekal Johnson. Ms. Amrita Talavadekar and Ms. Aishwarya Devastali from Maritime History Society. Head Academics, Indian Maritime University, Dr. K.M. Shivakulantu. Campus Directors of Indian Maritime University, faculty members, distinguished delegates attending this workshop, and my dear students, a very good morning and a warm welcome to all of you to the National Workshop, Maritime History of India, Manthan. Indian Maritime University is expected to play a key role in the years to come by diversifying the education, training, and research activities within the maritime domain. Presently, our focus is mainly in education, training, and research in the areas of nautical studies, marine engineering, naval architecture, ocean engineering, and maritime management. However, our areas of interest are wider and far beyond our present focus. What I understand is that our Honorable Vice Chancellor is very much focused and determined to take Indian Maritime University to its next higher level by facilitating education and application-oriented research activities in emerging areas such as maritime history, maritime law, maritime security, and many more. This national workshop, Maritime History of India, a Manthan, jointly organized by Indian Maritime University, Visakhapatnam campus and Maritime Society of India, may be considered just as a beginning of more and more events and activities focusing on maritime history. The IMU Visakhapatnam campus emerges from the confluence of centrally established Indian Maritime University at Chennai and India's premier ship design and maritime research institution, the National Ship Design and Research Center. IMU Visakhapatnam campus heralds the integration of visionary academic insight with the accumulated professional expertise and knowledge base on ship design and maritime technology. India is a nation with rich maritime heritage, navigational techniques, design and classification of ships, and ship construction methodologies followed by ancient Indians were far superior and advanced in comparison with their counterparts during those days. Currently, we are witnessing a time of debates and efforts for Atmanirbhar Bharat. During these days of Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, looking back to our glorious past in maritime field will invigorate the young generation to work towards a self-reliant maritime sector in India. Once again, I welcome one and all to our 2 days national workshop, Maritime History of India, Manthan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your introductory remarks. Now, I have great pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker and our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Malini Shankar. Dr. Malini Shankar has been a career bureaucrat for a long time, and her education is highly interesting and diversified. She holds a master's degree in chemistry from Mount Holyoke College, Massachusetts, USA, a management degree from Asian Institute of Management, Manila, Philippines, and a doctoral degree in institutional economics from Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. This education, followed by career bureaucrat, and her last assignment was that of Director General of Shipping, the statutory body looking after the maritime affairs with respect to the Merchant Shipping Act and the international commitments for IMO and ILO and other aspects. Dr. Shankar was also nominated by the International Maritime Organization as an honorary member of the Board of Directors of the World Maritime University. More recently, she has been selected as one of the 7 global recipients of the AAA Award by the Asian Institute of Management, Manila. She is the first Indian woman to receive the award. And this is a very small introduction, but what we hear is that she is highly enthusiastic and dynamic, and it is her idea that has led to the evolution into this workshop being organized by the Visakhapatnam campus. I'm sure with her guidance and leadership, we will go a long way in this area. And I request Dr. Malini Shankar to give her keynote address.
Thank you, Mr. Ramesh. Commodore Odakal Johnson and his team at the Maritime History Society, Mr. Keshav Dev, Director in Charge, Visakhapatnam campus of IMU, and his team, Dr. Shivakundu, who is the head of the academics and research at the IMU headquarters, representatives of various organizations, including ports, members of the National Shipping Board, historians, faculty, and all those who are passionate about heritage and history. At the outset, I would like to felicitate the Maritime History Society as well as the Visakhapatnam campus for bringing all of us together for this workshop. The Indian Maritime University, as all of you know, came into being through an act of parliament on 14th November 2008 as a central university. It is poised to play a key role in the development of trained human resource for maritime sector. A key objective of the university is to facilitate and promote maritime studies, training, research and extension work with focus on emerging areas of studies, including but not limited to oceanography, maritime history, maritime laws, maritime security, search and rescue, etc. How much have we done about maritime history is the key question. Every speech we hear that India has a very hoary maritime past, but how many of us know how hoary it is and how far backward it is? India is traditionally a maritime nation, and we all know that it has a rich maritime heritage. History documents trade links of India with other nations of the world from the ages of Harappan civilization. India's maritime history precedes the birth of Western civilization. The world's first tidal dock is believed to have been built at Lothal around 2300 BC during Harappan civilization, near the present-day Mangrove Harbour on the Gujarat coast. The government of India is rightly showcasing this as its prime maritime heritage. Even the Rig Veda, written around 2000 BC, credits Varuna with knowledge of the ocean routes commonly used by ships and describes naval expeditions using 100 old ships to subdue other kingdoms. The maritime tradition of India is as old as our civilization and as vast as the Indian Ocean. Maritime history is an interdisciplinary field which represents human interaction with the sea and the activities that are related to it, and this includes trade, and ports, among other things. Every life is bound to the sea as it has emerged from the sea. The sea being a global entity, even the thematic element of history often requires a global approach. But for the interrelated study of the same, regional histories need to be explored more closely. As an academic subject, it often deals with its allied disciplines for better understanding of mankind's relationships with the seas and oceans. Maritime history and heritage is an umbrella which deals with the history of navigation, as well as related fields such as maritime law, history of shipbuilding, and even maritime sciences such as oceanography, cartography, hydrography, etc. In the master plan that the Indian Maritime University had made, it was emphasized that each of the campuses of the IMU specializes in specific areas such that the university as a whole becomes a crucible for generating ideas for the maritime sector. The IMU should be the premier resource center and the first choice for professionals in maritime sector. Maritime studies should delve beyond the domain of just marine engineering, nautical studies, and logistics, and acquire a 360-degree view. With this in mind, and with the proactive encouragement of the Honorable Minister, Mr. Mandodia, the IMU initiated discussions with like-minded organizations and individuals. The first such meeting was held on the 12th of April 2021, where it was agreed that there is ample scope to conduct research as well as short-term courses and electives to both in-house students as well as external participants, both domestic and foreign. The IMU Visakhapatnam campus took the lead to hold discussions with the director of the Maritime History Society. This was done as early as 24th February 2021, and it was decided to hold a joint workshop on the subject. The current workshop is the outcome of this preliminary collaborative effort. The objective of the workshop is to raise awareness among our students, faculty, and staff, and also to any interested participant regarding culture, commerce, and connectivity across the Indian Ocean. In due course, this workshop should lead to further programs such as offering electives to the students, specializations to students, and more intense research in a gamut of fields related to maritime heritage and archaeology, such that we create a crucible of people that will contribute to the future policies of the country, preserve the heritage of the country, and spread the words regarding the holy maritime civilization that we are. I wish the workshop, the joint workshop, all success. And last but not least, I would urge all of us to come together and celebrate the amplitude of the maritime domain. And after the workshop, strive to spread the maritime awareness in our individual capacities and in our professional capacities, contribute towards taking the program forward such that it forms a part of the curriculum, history at its best. Thank you very much and wish the program all success.
Thank you very much, madam, for your inspiring words. And you laid the thought process for the actions to come. And now we will go on to our next speaker. And it is my great pleasure to introduce Commodore Oracle Johnson. I'm really surprised that Commodore Johnson actually commenced his maritime journey from training ship Rajendra, which is now IMU Navi Mumbai campus. His legacy has come to IITS Chanakya, which is now IMU Navi Mumbai campus. So as such, you are an alumnus, sir, of IMU by itself. And I welcome you both as Director of Maritime History Society and as an alumnus of IMU to this workshop.
Thank you.
After having passed out from Rajendra in 1982, Commodore Johnson was commissioned into the executive branch of the Indian Navy in August 87, and that too after qualifying or getting the certificate of competency as a second mate from the Mercantile Marine Department. And he has served in various capacities in the Navy. and he's also an alumnus of the Defense Services Staff College, Wellington, the then College of Naval Warfare, Karanja, and the Department of Civics and Politics, University of Mumbai, from where he has obtained a PhD in political science in maritime governance. Now, he has had a number of leadership roles in both in the range of staff and command assignments in the Navy. And he has authored a book titled The Timeless Wake, The Legacy of the Royal Indian Navy in World War II, and co-edited Essays in Maritime Studies, Volume 3, published by the Maritime History Society. He is a renowned speaker in maritime matters and a visiting faculty on research methodology, as well as in maritime knowledge at the Naval War College, Goa, Indian Naval Academy, Azimala, University of Mumbai, Central University of Gujarat, among others. He has published many papers in eminent journals and articles in various media. He has done great service to enhance the spirit of the maritime consciousness in India. And currently, he is heading the Maritime History Society, which itself is a 42-year-old institution. And he has made this institution into an institution of excellence in promoting sea-mindedness and mentoring competent young scholars in the maritime domain. Sir, we are very happy to have you here, sir. And it's over to you for your address.
Thank you, Ramesh. I'll just select my presentation and we should be done. Just a minute. Okay. Right. Dr. Malini Shankar, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Indian Maritime University, participants, fellow maritime enthusiast, Dr. Keshav Das, in charge Director of IMU Vizag campus, Sri Ramesh, the manager, and who has been a great source of connect in the run-up to this workshop, Dr. Shivakalando, and many other distinguished friends, enthusiasts who are present here. A very good morning to you all. It is indeed my honor to be at this platform to present the thematic address. And one of the great gifts this morning that the Honorable Vice Chancellor has given is, while she delivered the keynote address, like a very fresh academic insight, she has actually saved a lot of time, which gives me a bit of leeway to outline the thematic insight. We at MHS are delighted to partner with the Indian Maritime University, and we know of this initiative as alluded by the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways to embark on this joint voyage to enhance maritime consciousness in India and beyond, with this workshop being the very first step. Do you know COVID-19, a tiny virus, and suddenly lockdown became the big word that entered a lexicon which we didn't even know about it maybe more than a year ago. Lockdown meant some gates against some protesters being shut down. And one of the constraints as lockdown returns, especially in many parts of India, it does not mean if I say, let's travel the world. So in your imagination, allow me to fly you all the way to Thailand. And what will happen if you arrive at Bangkok airport? Well, as a slide, this is the sight that will greet you. In Bangkok airport in Thailand, a scene of Samudra Manthan, which is recreated at the Suvarnabhumi airport at Bangkok. This depiction of Samudra Manthan is an excellent example of the vastness of Indian culture and connectivity through the maritime domain. And therefore, as the theme of this workshop is Maritime History of India, a Manthan, it has been derived from this very famous story of Samudra Manthan, very briefly, we know that, or that's the popular version, that the Devas were cursed by sage Durvasa to lose all their strength. And then the Asuras win them in battle and take control of the universe. The Devas go to Lord Vishnu for help, who advises them that the only nectar that resides at the bottom of the celestial ocean of milk can make them strong again. But the ocean needed to be churned for the nectar to surface, a task they couldn't do alone since they didn't have the powers. So they engaged the demons to help them in the lure of nectar. Recent scholarship work by a few scholars mentioned, the idea of devas and demons as good and bad is a much later concept in the Indian spiritual knowledge world. The story itself delves into this philosophy that you have to churn the ocean of knowledge for something to emerge that will ensure a productivity, a sustainability, a viability. In fact, the elixir of life, because life begins and continues at sea. Maritime History Society has been tirelessly working to promote a maritime vision through several means. This collaborative workshop marks a milestone in our journey. So, allow me to share a few nuggets of this journey and whet your mental appetite for more. So, let me take you to a journey to many million years ago. As a navigator, what else can I do but begin a voyage? And this voyage is nearly 200 million years ago. Now, around that period, the landmass that we call Pangaea started breaking up because of shifts of the tectonic plates of the Earth. Around 150 million years ago, Laurasia and Gondwana were formed. And I would dare say India's first maritime journey began when the landmass of India broke off from Gondwana, traveled thousands of miles to crash into the Indian or the Eurasian continent, and that forms the geographical landmass of India. The Holocene epoch recorded history with the rise and fall of several civilizations. This visual and the few that follow are courtesy of the collaborative work between Amar Chitrakatha, the Naval History Project Cell at in the Navy, and Maritime History Society, as we combine to form a student-friendly version. As the Honorable VC was mentioning, awareness. So we are planting awareness at the very school level and as at the very initial level. Do you know that Indian Ocean is a vast channel of network, a landmass that dominates the Indian Ocean? It is not India's ocean, but it has connected several cultures through history. In this understanding, right through history, Indian terrain has been a very fertile piece, what we call the Gangetic Plain. But story is not about the Gangetic Plain. The seas were brimming with resources such as fish, and people started making most of them. So, with this environment, whereas as the landmass of India and the people who inhabit it became prosperous, and over a period of time, sea levels had risen. Some of the areas we today consider inland were actually coastal. We know about Lothal and the entire connectivity. Let's look at some elements that update the nature of this connectivity to get a closer understanding of what we would call the Manthan. The first part of this Indian Ocean network is that it was about commerce across the oceans. Trade was carried out in a variety of goods such as silk, spice, wine, cotton, and major shipping routes connected the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf, the littorals to the east of Africa, and the Arabian Peninsula. Even today, what makes the sea so important is that the very survival of global trade, including India, depends on the sea routes being open and the concept we call the freedom of the seas. But the Indian Ocean Network was not just about trade, it was also about culture. And sea becomes the medium of cultural connect with Southeast Asia. One of the best places to recognize this is the Indian influence on Bali, which is evident from the Bali Yatra festival in Indonesia. Interestingly, every November around Kartik Purnima, when the monsoons change, and you'll hear more about that, the Kalingans used to set sail from the Kalingan coast, modern day Odisha, and then they would travel all the way to Bali. The Indian influence of Hinduism, Buddhism, Indian architecture is so evident at Angkor Wat, Angkor Thom, Bayon, and Tafrom, among others. So, into this network of commerce, culture, and connectivity, we find conflict comes in. There was very briefly during the Chola period, there was a bit of a naval expedition, but trade had remained at the center of contention for supremacy and control. As imperial European powers in the late 14th century and the 15th century started getting into this commercial interest, Indian Ocean finally is breached by end of 15th century, and that introduces conflicts into the Indian Ocean network. So that's like a brief trajectory of how it transformed and changed. This is a old Portuguese map of the Indian Ocean region, a more medieval period. So let us understand that this connect of culture and tradition forms the canvas of an international relationship that connected people across the Indian Ocean region and beyond. There is valuable insight of ancient maritime practices carried across generations that reflects in several cultural traditions, folklore, antiquity, and literature. This demands knowledge and innovation honed in Indian nautical practices. We also need to recognize underwater cultural heritage, which visibly is a tangible aspect of the underwater domain as long as it's around 100 years old or even lesser depending on significance. So today, after the inaugural session, the first session will deal with a targeted approach of tangible and intangible maritime heritage, which will be covered by the MHS research scholars Amrita Talavadekar and Aishwarya Devastali, who bring together an expertise of urban conservation and built heritage in a maritime construct. So, Indian Ocean is enclosed on three sides by an almost continuous landmass when compared to the other two oceans, which are enclosed, I would say, ice to ice from the North Pole to the South Pole. When we look at the landmass, you have on one side the East African coast, the Arabian Peninsula, the South Asian continental plate, the Southeast Asian archipelagos, and into this entire geography, the dominating feature is the Indian subcontinent, which juts out almost 1,000 miles to subdivide Indian Ocean into the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal. Thus, by default, India becomes a central hub for maritime activity, which then is promulgated, and we are able to recognize the work of maritime history emerging through generations. Now, maritime history is an interdisciplinary field, as was mentioned by the Honorable VC. It requires a holistic approach to establish a relationship between historical research and other disciplines. The network covers international relations, economy, history, science, oceanography, hydrography, climatology, and much more. Allow me to narrate another story to give a context to this whole principle of Indian Ocean geography. You know, we only look at the surface. This visual indicates if we were to go to the seabed, that is a fascinating geography. Well, let's come back to the sea surface And let me share this interesting account. You know, Commander Abhilash Tomi, who's now recently retired this January, a winner of the Kirti Chakra medal, he was the first Indian to solo circumnavigate the world non-stop in a sailboat in 2013. In 1st of July 2018, Abhilash started from the seaside town of La Sable-d'Olonne in France on the Golden Globe race. And a few months later, on 24th of September, Abhilash Tomi was in a situation where he required emergency assistance after his yacht was badly damaged in a storm some 2,175 miles west of Australia, leaving him with a broken back. And he was rescued by the French fishing vessel Osiris. And in a few slides, let me just capture the magnitude of this whole activity to understand. Now, look at this geographical span, where he starts and where he arrives. You would see this spot where the accident took place. And this is where he was injured. And just look at the geography, the ranges. These are some people who are involved. I would call them maritime geographers in the rescue. Indian naval vessel Satpura, the Indian maritime patrol aircraft Pietai, the French fishing vessel Osiris, and the Australian vessel HMAS Balat. But just look at the distances, and these are nautical miles. Some almost 3,000 miles south of Chennai, where IMU headquarters is based, 2,000 plus miles west of Perth. And that gives you the expanse and the scope of the degree of study of the oceanic realm. This is just to give you maritime geography itself is so fascinating, and it is an integral part of maritime history. So Maritime History Society has continued this journey, and this holistic approach forms a bridge of knowledge that comes from maritime practitioner to traditionalists, that is academics, and utilitarians, who are the practitioners and the policy makers. So when you come to the second session of the working session tomorrow, you will have this multivariate perspective of the maritime domain presented to you by the scholars Janvi Lokegaonkar and Denard D'Souza, who will talk of maritime development through history. Allow me to, as I close with 2 bits more of information of giving you this 18th century artistic rendition of Mumbai and Kolkata, then Fort George and Fort William. So this is what the ports, ports were still the dominant feature. They were at the hub. Across the globe, the major economic centers are always on the seacoast or close to the seacoast. How is it relevant today? Today, the Indian government has made Sagarmala initiative, which is a port-led development, at the heart of economic revival as a major component of GDP growth. So history gives lessons for development of current understanding and future strategy. That's not all. So I want to end this time by saying we have been privileged at the Maritime History Society to stand on the shoulders of giants. Over 42 years, research work, lectures, seminars, book publications, community outreach, much more has been done to serve the cause. And sadly, very few know about it. And so even last year, when COVID hit us and we felt that we were restricted, the vision of a founder chairman, Admiral Auty, this is his picture from 2013 at the release of the book Timeless Wake. And he went away for his final journey on 2018 November. But his vision and his inspiration enabled us, we call it MHS 2.0. The lockdown didn't restrict us, but our vision was executed and our reach became digital, that enabled us to connect to many people, including this opportunity that we have today. So What do I want to leave behind for us as we go forward? We are on this journey, which is promoted at the highest levels of governance and leadership in this country. The mission is to enhance influence across every sector for greater maritime consciousness. At MHS, we have a 3-point value system. We call it the big picture, ownership, and collaborate. So, how do you remember it? Remember the 3 P's. When we set out to enhance maritime consciousness and want to learn from maritime history, first thing, picture it. Let's have a vision. We will be multiple stakeholders. We could be architects, we could be archaeologists, we could be oceanographers, we could be economists, we could be history scholars, we could be mathematicians, we could be astronomers. What is my vision? How do I achieve it? And so the second P is to possess it. Without passion, nothing gets done. I was, one of my mentors is John Maxwell, a leadership coach. He says the difference between those who lack fear is that they have a passion. So let's take ownership that India is a maritime nation, and we will be committed to developing this maritime vision across, beginning with myself. And we will see that it is passed on to families, to school children, to young scholars, to policymakers, and to the larger public. And this cannot happen without collaboration. The third P, partner for it. This workshop is one such example. Institutions come together. I am very proud that I am a default alumni of IMU. It wasn't IMU when I did the course, my pre-C course. It was Trainingship Rajendra, as mentioned by Ramesh at Bauchadakka. But I believe every maritime sector, even if you come to the government of India, 18 ministries are involved when it comes to the maritime sector. And that's not a big number. That is what is required, because that's how complex the maritime medium is. So let's picture it, possess it, partner for it, work together to see this happen. And so we are committed, and we are so delighted at this opportunity given to us by the ministry, by the Indian Maritime University. We are committed to promote sea-mindedness, partner with us, visit and contribute to us, and contribute to scholarship. And I believe we will see an enhanced version, an enhanced consciousness across the maritime domain. Thank you. Shabna Varun. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, sir, for your beautiful overview of the entire maritime history and its past, its relevance to the current situation, and how do we take it forward in the future. And we actually look forward to the scholars who are actually going to present more in detail. But your brief overview of what is going to come is very well appreciated. Thank you very much. And at the moment, the inaugural session is over. I thank all the participants, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Malini Shankarji, and Commodore Johnson, and our Director in charge, Dr. Kesav Dev, for having graced the occasion.